Every single day, Wall-E did the same thing. He scooped up piles of trash and stuffed them into his body. Then he compressed the garbage into perfectly shaped little cubes. The crazy part was, he didn't even have to keep working anymore. But every morning he still showed up on time, because he was the last robot left on Earth, and his only job was cleaning up humanity's mess. For 700 years, Wall-E had lived completely alone. No friends, no conversations, no real connection with anyone. At first, he simply followed his programming and worked non-stop. But after centuries of isolation, something inside him slowly changed. He started observing the world around him. He became curious. He began thinking for himself. And the harder he worked, the more he believed that maybe, if he cleaned the planet enough, humans might finally come back home. But the mountains of garbage kept getting bigger. There was simply too much waste for one tiny robot to handle alone. Still, his life wasn't completely empty. Even though every other robot had broken down long ago, Wall-E still had one loyal companion, a little cockroach that followed him everywhere. After work, Wall-E returned to his tiny home, packed wall to wall with random treasures he'd collected over the years. The moment he walked in, he carefully hung up his boot-like treads, pulled out an old VHS tape, and played his favorite movie. Then he sorted through the little treasures he found that day. While watching the movie, one scene completely captured his attention. Even though he was just a robot and didn't understand what holding hands actually felt like, he still wanted someone beside him, someone to share life with. He stared at the screen and slowly pressed his two mechanical hands together, trying to imitate the humans on TV. At night, he folded himself into a tiny cube and gently rocked himself to sleep beside his collection of memories. The next morning, a low-battery alarm dragged him awake. Like every exhausted worker getting ready for another shift, Wall-E slowly pulled himself up, put his treads back on, and climbed onto the roof to recharge under the sun. Once fully charged, he went right back to work. But just before leaving, he accidentally rolled over his cockroach friend. Thankfully, the little guy popped right back up like nothing happened. That day, Wall-E got lucky. First, he found a pair of old goggles in the trash and realized they actually fit him pretty well. Then he discovered a jewelry box with a diamond ring inside. The ring didn't mean anything to him, so he tossed it away. But the box itself? That was the real treasure. Still, his biggest discovery came from an old refrigerator. Inside, he found something almost impossible on a dead planet like Earth. A tiny green plant, surrounded by endless ruins and garbage. That little bit of life felt completely different. Walt carefully scooped up the dirt, placed the plant inside an old shoe, and carried it home like it was priceless. But just as he arrived, a strange red laser that appeared nearby. He reached for it, but it darted away. Curious, he chased after it without realizing more red lights were slowly surrounding him. Then suddenly, everything shook. A massive spaceship crashed down from the sky. Moments later, a sleek white robot flew out of the ship. At first, Wall-E thought he had finally found another robot like himself. But the second a rock moved nearby, the white robot instantly switched into attack mode. Terrified, Wall-E hid behind a wall without moving a muscle. This robot looked powerful and dangerous. Soon, she began scanning the city as if she were searching for something important. Even so, Wall-E secretly followed her, because after 700 years of loneliness, nothing scared him more than being alone again. Eventually, the cockroach wandered into view. The white robot had clearly never seen a living creature before. She held out her hand and let the tiny bug crawl across it. And for the first time, she smiled. Wall-E smiled too. But the second she looked at him, he panicked and folded himself into a box again. After scanning him and realizing he was just a trash compacting robot, she lost interest and moved on. Still, Wall-E became braver after that. He kept following her from a distance, even if he freaked out every time she turned around. At one point, he got so nervous he crashed into a shopping cart and slammed straight into a wall. But he never stopped following her. Eventually, the white robot powered down into sleep mode. Only then did Wall-E finally approach her. Wanting to be friendly, he decided to give her a gift. The next day, she woke up, but barely reacted to the thoughtful present he prepared. Disappointed, Wall-E kicked a nearby pipe in frustration. Meanwhile, the robot, whose name was Eve, continued searching for her mission target. She searched every corner of the city but found nothing. As time passed, she became more irritated. Then a giant magnet suddenly trapped her in place. No matter how hard she struggled, she couldn't break free. Finally losing her temper, Eve blasted the magnet apart and destroyed half the surrounding area in seconds. Once she calmed down, Wall-E nervously approached her. But before he could say anything, Eve grabbed him and demanded to know who he was. Panicking, Wall-E quickly demonstrated that he was just a trash robot. Then came their first real introduction. Wall-E, Eve, and somehow, things immediately felt different between them. Right then, Wall-E's warning alarm started going off. A massive sandstorm was coming. He tried warning Eve, but she instinctively raised her weapon, scaring him back into box mode again. Moments later, the storm swallowed everything in darkness. Eve lost her sense of direction and desperately called out for Wall-E. Luckily, he grabbed her hand and guided her safely back to his home. Inside, Eve stayed cautious around all the strange human objects Wall-E had collected. A singing toy fish suddenly went off on the wall, causing Eve to immediately aim her cannon at it. Wall-E practically dove in front of the toy to stop her from blowing up his house. Trying to help her relax, he showed her his favorite treasures and taught her how they worked. When Eve accidentally launched one of his toys across the room, she awkwardly pretended nothing happened. But soon she became fascinated by the simplest things: bubble wrap, a glowing light bulb, even an old Rubik's Cube that she solved instantly. Wall-E stared at her in complete amazement. Later, while watching an old dance scene on TV, the two robots tried dancing together. Eve learned incredibly fast, maybe a little too fast. She accidentally slammed Wall-E across the room and even damaged his camera lens. While fixing himself, Wall-E noticed Eve staring at the flame from a lighter in complete wonder. But while Eve stared at the fire, Wall-E stared at Eve. Finally gathering his courage, he slowly reached for her hand. But before he could touch her, he remembered the plant. The second Eve scanned it, her entire system changed. A green light flashed across her body. Her storage compartment opened automatically, and she carefully stored the plant inside herself. That was what she had been searching for the whole time. Then suddenly, Eve shut down completely. No matter how much Walt called for her, she wouldn't respond. Thinking she had simply run out of power, he dragged her into the sunlight to recharge. But even after hours passed, she never woke up. Still, he never left her side. When it rained, he held an umbrella over her. When storms came, he protected her. Day after day, he waited beside her. And even while working, she never left his mind. Then one day, the ground shook again. Wall-E rushed home just in time to see Eve being taken back onto the spaceship. Without hesitation, he chased after it and barely grabbed onto the outside before it launched into space. For the first time in 700 years, Wall-E left Earth behind. And everything after that changed his life forever. By the end of the story, the saddest thing about W.E. wasn't that Earth had become a giant garbage dump. It was the fact that a robot who could barely speak understood love better than humanity did. After 700 years of loneliness, he still fell in love over a single glance. He still crossed the universe just to stay beside someone he cared about. And even when he was falling apart, his first instinct was to protect life instead of himself. Maybe the most advanced thing was never technology. Maybe it was whether, in a world growing colder every day, we could still care about someone the way Wall-E did.